Although actually, FBI data to the Moussaoui trial, the only actual solid information we've had, presented to a court, indicates that those famous mobile phone calls, which Tony Blair cited as being the reason why he believed the official story, most of those mobile phone calls never took place. So that raises the question.
I've heard recordings of some of them.
That raises the question of who did originate those mobile phone calls. Well, what we now know, and what the 9/11 Commission covered up, what we now know, and what the 9/11 Commission covered up, is that the Pentagon was running. Now, can you believe this? If you believe Nick, if you believe the official media, this is just another amazing coincidence. The Pentagon were running that very morning, almost to the hour, probably exactly to the hour, an anti-hijack exercise. Now, isn't that just what you would want to do if you were actually manipulating a nasty event and you wanted to create a smoke screen?
What do you think happened to United 93? Annie Machin, what do you think happened to United 93?
And just to finish the story about the mobile phone calls, that could easily have been the origin of the mobile phone calls. They could have been from a Pentagon operations room.
But the next of kin recognised the voices
I'm
of their
not
dead
sure
relatives.
about that, Nick. I haven't seen that.
Because, well, have you seen any relatives question whether those calls were real? I haven't.
I've seen them give detailed evidence about the calls which cannot be true, such as the timing of
so
them.
the next of kin are lying now?
You can't make... No, I didn't say they're lying, Nick. You're being overly suspicious. I said they gave wrong information.
That's the journalist in him again.
They're mistaken, you mean?
What happened with United 93?
Well, we just don't know, do we?
What do you think
this is
might have happened?
We do not know. I mean, there is confusion, as Nick says. Was there an order to shoot it down or was there not? I mean, in purely military terms, that would have made sense. But I just want to pull it back a bit. I absolutely agree with what Wendy was saying about how they've ramped up the fear factor, changed the psychology and imposed all these draconian measures on us because of 9/11. And this is one of the key reasons why so many of us do want a new inquiry, because of the implications, what's happened in its name since. And all these precautions on planes are just not working. I mean, the idea you can't take more than 100 millilitres of fluid onto the plane because of the liquid bombs.
Annie, you say they're not working, but thank goodness there haven't been any more terrorist attacks on aircraft.
There is no way. I mean, the bomb disposal experts have said that they could not... Do you remember all the headlines about liquid bombs on planes? Those bombs could not be made in the way that the media would have us believe in the time frame.
No, but they are working, aren't they?
Planes have not been... I believe it was the Register, which is a media outlet, which published the information about that particular bomb not working.
Yeah. I actually know the bomb disposal heroes, a man called Lieutenant Colonel Nigel Wilde, who's decorated Northern Ireland, who was the first to go on the public.
I hope we can reveal that name because we have now, but go on.
No, he's well in the public. I mean, the government actually falsely tried to prosecute him for a breach of the Official Secrets Act in 1999. Another, innocent...
Ian Henschel, what happened with United 93 before we go?
I think it was probably shot down. I don't know. I think I just would like to have it properly investigated. I'd like to ask the air traffic controllers, who incidentally they thought it was part of the exercise. See, one of the questions which you now have had answered is why didn't they respond to these hijacked planes? It's because they thought it was part of the anti-hijack exercise. But maybe it was part of the anti-hijack exercise. What we don't know, there's a murky area which the CIA, of course, are brilliant at creating. Intelligence agencies, this is what they do all day long. They create confusion and smoke screens, so that it's extremely difficult to unravel what actually did happen.
That means at least there has to be a fighter pilot and a navigator or two and a few air traffic controllers that know and have stayed silent, or have they been
if you go to the New York Times nowadays with information about
somebody
something
had to
like
shoot
this,
that plane
they'll phone up. They might not have stayed silent. It might not have got into the media, but the media now are just grasses. They just go straight to the Pentagon. I'm not speculating. If you go to the New York Times with a hot story about 9/11, the first thing they'll do is, and they've said this in public, the first thing they do is to phone up the Pentagon.
It's called a fact check.
Yeah.
No, because they'll phone up the Pentagon and they'll tell them who you are. They won't say, "Oh, we've got a source we're going to protect." They're going to phone up the Pentagon and they're going to say, this fighter pilot, and this is his name, and this is his rank, has come to us with this story. What do you think? And so is anybody going to go to the New York Times under those circumstances? Of course they're not.
Let's not get too deep into that because we need to go back to the questions. And Boyle van Rensburg. Boyle.
Panel, yes.
Yes, sir.
With that in mind, what would the repercussions be if on American internal and external relations should the so-called theories become undisputed fact?
Let's turn to the biggest sceptic, perhaps, of the lot, the editor of Skeptic, Wendy Grossman. What would those repercussions be for American internal and external affairs? If it was a cover-up of some sort, or a conspiracy theory?
Do you mean if it was proved it was a cover-up? Well, it seems to me the only really clear cover-up whose aftermath we can call on as an example is Watergate. And in Watergate, you know, the top guy was punished.
But the top guy's going in November anyway, isn't he? So that wouldn't work.
The top guy
How do you reckon the world would respond if it was actually categorically copper-bottomed 1,001% that, in fact, they were not actually giving us the whole deck? It is not made of whole cloth. There was something there.
What has been the reaction in the UK to Blair's didn't he eventually admit that the weapons of mass destruction was not true?
I don't think he ever has actually admitted. You could argue what it did for his administration. Annie Machin or Ian Henshaw might want to come in on that. It's not helped them along.
Well, the interesting thing about that, of course, is the uranium forgery, which MI6 authenticated and which the UN discovered to be a fraud within about 3 hours of seeing it. And MI6's way of wriggling out of that is they still won't admit it was a forgery. It's their only way, because otherwise they'd have to, you know, they'd be on a fast road. I think the points about this war and the point about how they might have colluded in murdering Americans to start the war, I'd say colluded as a possibility, is that it's already illegal to start a war of aggression under international law. And actually, Bush and Cheney, they could be put in the electric chair. I dare say. I'm not a great lawyer, but you know, if that's how serious it is, and that's how angry they're going to be, and that's how unpleasant they're going to be to anybody in the media who starts raising these issues.
I think the more immediate thing would be to get the Democrats elected in November.
Well, no, because the Democrats have colluded. They're up to their eyeballs, just like they are in the Iraq War.
Yeah, but nonetheless, they're the other party.
I think what people sometimes forget in all of this, though, is that Al-Qaeda had declared a fatwa against the United States, and they'd said, we're not going to differentiate between military and civilian targets. They'd bombed the embassy in Kenya, they'd bombed the embassy in Tanzania, they'd bombed the USS Cole, and, you know, they'd made no secret of the fact that they wanted to bring war to the American mainland, and that's exactly what they did.
But Nick, hang on, we're going off the... hold on, Annie. If we come back to the question...